my car hydroplaned. And when it hydroplaned, I started spinning. I seen a black mass come in through my window and come into my head and knock me slick out. It was a demon. Now I know what it was. I hit a tree 3 times. I would hit the tree and bounce off. I could feel myself. I was like out, but I could feel my body in the car. I would hit the tree and bounce off, hit the tree and bounce off 3 times. Each time it was ejecting me from the car, and my face was in the tree. It tore off my nose, my lips, shattered all the bone in my face. My face is nothing but metal from here on down. I had scars all over me, scars above my eye. They did a good job at putting me back. They had to use a modeling picture to put me back together. Well, I kept dying on them. I kept losing blood and dying and dying. Well, I went in and I died the 17th time. My mother's pastor was in the room with me and held my hand during all surgeries. I heard him screaming to the doctors before I went out, before I died the 17th time. I said, she's going to live. And I was under medication and all. I could hear this. I heard him saying, I said to keep working. The Lord told me she's going to live. She's not going to die. Keep working. The doctors were throwing their clipboards in the floor and taking their hats off and throwing them, their scrub hats, and saying they worked so hard on me and I was a beautiful girl and they were so sorry they couldn't do no more for me. I come up out of my body and I started floating. I was floating over my body. I felt no pain, no nothing. I was looking down at myself. And I was thinking, what are they, crying about? What? My mom's pastor is here. And why is he crying? He was over top of me and I could see he did have some blood on his clothes, like laying where he was laying over top of me. I could see some blood on his shirt. He had on a white shirt. I was like, oh my gosh, who is that? I didn't recognize it was me because my face was so mangled in the bandages and I was on life support. My lungs had collapsed. I had a trach, a feeding tube, colostomy bag for 3 years. I was sent home to die. Anyway, I come up out of my body and I started noticing their scrub hats and then putting them back on their heads, the ones that had threw them down, for slamming their hats on the floor, taking them off their head and just like throwing them, like because they worked so hard on me and they were, just in disbelief that they kept bringing me back. And this time I just died. I was dead for like, I think 27 minutes. 27 minutes it was on my paper. I have proof of all this. And I just kind of looked at them all, and just thinking, wow, that must be me laying there. But how can I be out of my body? Well, when I started thinking that, I started drifting into a light. It was a bright light. And then I started going into a gray light, and it started getting darker. And I didn't feel my body moving. It felt like the light was moving, like I was traveling in the light. And it started getting grayer and darker and darker and darker till I got pitch black and I couldn't see. Wherever I was going, I finally landed like on my feet. I could feel myself on solid ground. And I could feel my body, but I didn't feel no pain. It was like I was alive. I was alive. I looked around in this place. And I looked straight ahead. There was an iron, black wrought iron gate with a gigantic keyhole where an old key would go into it, but there were no keys. And I looked through the wrought iron gates. There was a spiral staircase that went up. And it said, the sign up above, in through them iron gates and black wrought iron gates, said, welcome to the gates of hell, in blood-curdling letters. Like in a lithography kind of, but it looked like they were bleeding down the way they were written. I looked up to this spiral staircase. I was outside of the gate. A force started sucking me through the gate, and I was pulling myself back with my hands up in the air like I didn't want to go. I was trying to fight this force. It sucked me through the gate. I looked down at my feet and I could see great big pits pits. I could smell decaying flesh and bodies and death all around me. The most pungent smells I ever smelled in my life. I looked down at the ground, and these demons, what I know now are demons, these scaly reptile-looking beings with long tails with pointed razors on the end of their tails and all the way down. Their eyes were slanted upward like this in a point, and they were blood red, far red, and their ears were at points that stuck straight up, and they had scales all over their bodies, and they kept popping up, and as this force was sucking me through the wrought iron gate, their tails were wrapping around my legs and cutting my legs. I could feel the pain. It sucked me up to this spiraling staircase, and I looked, and there were doors, like big metal doors, and the walls, there were no walls. It was just a dark gray matter. I get up to the first door, and it opens, and I heard wailing and gnashing of teeth. I heard people crying, and the door opens a little wider, and it shuts in my face, like, am I going to do it? Will I do it? That kind of thing, like playing with me. Well, it starts sucking me up to the second door, and it opens up the same way as the first door did. I seen 3 doors there, but the spiral staircase kept going up. I believe the reason why I seen the 3 doors was for my sins, the 3rd level of hell I was going to. I come to the second door, and it did the same thing, and I heard the same thing. I get up to the 3rd door, and it slams. It opens up and slams. I heard the same thing of the wailing and crying and save me and help me. And, I didn't know nobody's voice, but I heard people. And I was so scared. I couldn't think to pray. I couldn't do nothing. And then I started thinking, God, why am I here? Why? Please help me. I was like saying, help me in my mind. I couldn't speak. I could only think it in my mind. All of a sudden, at that 3rd door, I flew off that step. I didn't go back down the spiral staircase, like walk down or anything. I started going back into a light. I come back into my body, and when I did, it felt like a 10-ton house landed on me. It was the worst pain I ever felt in my life. The worst pain. This is kind of hard, you all. It was awful. But anyway, I hate to think back about this, but I know somebody needs to hear this. I have to find somebody. I need to let people hear my story. My mother always told me to give my testimony. And since I found my calling, I found God. I'm a Christian. And I know my calling. I know what it is.